Oh, would you look at the time? It's 11 a.m. on a Friday. It must be the REI Rocks Review. I'm Dan Fradenburgh, and I'm here with Jason Williams. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing pretty well, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. You're, I don't know if it counts as vacation, but you're up at Mum's. It's everybody's having a good time over there.
Everyone's having a blast over here. As you can see, my
Did
dog
I
is out
see?
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's out there somewhere.
Ophelia's
Yeah.
making a cameo appearance on the REI Rocks Review. That's very exciting stuff, and I'm sure Angel will be here any moment. But just to let you in on what we're up to, here at the Academy Presents, twice a year we have the REI Rocks Summit, and all of that content is available via subscription to maximize your learning process. But every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, we review one of those presentations or roundtables or panels, and we watch them at 1.5 times speed and pause it whenever there's something relevant to say. But as far as this clip here, we're going to be going through Lauren Cadillac's presentation from our spring summit. I don't know. What do you recall about Lauren Cadillac, so that I'm not flapping my gums the entire time here?
Is this the one where she goes over protesting taxes or what you have to do for taxing for property taxes? So
Exactly. That's the one. And here's Angel as well. How you doing today, Angel? Oh, I just muted you, or you just muted yourself in time.
Doing well. I was going to get more light.
Good idea. Good idea. That works. So we're going to be reviewing this. And so basically the main thing is in Texas, they got one little quirk when it comes to taxes, which is you don't have to tell how much you actually paid for the building. And then, of course, there are other things like how they actually only tax you on that on a portion of the entire value rather than the whole thing, just to make sure that as people speculate and prices go up and down, that they're not being too ridiculous, or at least that's the theory. But I've already got this queued up. Go ahead,
in Texas, they tax you on the full amount, the full tax amount. They just don't always get that right. Other states I've seen, they'll say, well, the full amount is based on like what you buy it at, but we're only going to tax you at 40%. And so it kind of evens out. But yeah, Texas is a weird state. So
it's not a whole lot of arguments there, but we love it. But right now I'm sharing my screen inside the VIP area. You can see all these different summits in here. There's all sorts of different content. I always love it when Angel takes a moment to talk about how wonderful these summits are and just what kind of people you end up getting as speakers. Angel, do you want to say a thing or two about that?
Yeah, I can. So we've been doing the summits for quite a while now. We had a first one in March of 2020, and getting the chance to do them, we've gotten to really have a documentation of it growing with us. So the first one, the topics covered were very different from the topics that we cover now. They get kind of specific to what we see happening to ourselves and others. And so they're really great. They're a perfect place for that person trying to get from 0 to 1, or maybe who's done one deal and wants to do another one. It's just a really great place for those people to be. And then it's a really great place for seasoned investors to be too, or even passive investors. So we cover a lot of things that are good for a lot of different kinds of people.
I completely agree. It's there's always lots to learn. My favorite thing is how you tend to attract people who are actually doing the deals, who are actually doing commercial real estate, and they're not just trying to make money off of a book that they read once or something terrible like that. But this is Lauren Cadillac. As you can see from her little thumbnail here, she's an attorney, a real estate attorney specifically. She's also got her MBA and her LLM, which means that she also does the tax side of real estate. So this is very exciting stuff. Do not adjust your television set, your monitor, your computer, whatever. We are watching at 1.5 times speed. If that is too overwhelming for you, maybe you can catch the replay, and then they even have speed controls to drop it down to 0.75 times if that's your thing, or if you're speed demons like me and Jason, you can crank it up to 2 times. But let's get started with Lauren Cadillac's presentation.
All right. Hey guys, we are back. Hopefully everybody got to go over to Brian Briscoe's meetup for his TGI Friday. It's a lot of fun. There were like over 40 people there. So I'm hoping that we were a big part of that because Brian's a great guy and I want to make sure that he knows that we're supporting him as well. Before we got started, I wanted to go over a couple of the books that Amy Silvas was talking about. One of them was Go Giver, and she actually gave us this copy. So if you have thought about doing any of the stuff that she's doing with the LinkedIn secrets, this might be one of the things you get. Maybe it was just for us, but I think it was for most people. And when she was talking about emotional intelligence, I think she was talking about positive intelligence. This is one of my favorite books ever. I could be wrong. And hopefully if I'm wrong, she gets on here in a little bit and talks about which book she was talking about because I don't know what book emotional intelligence is. So, but anyway, Lauren Charles is saying that we have a Lincoln Continental of an attorney. So are you the Lincoln lawyer?
I'm not the Lincoln lawyer.
You're the Cadillac lawyer.
That's right. That's correct.
All right. Dan, I'm going to move to the top. And then if you want to introduce Lauren a little bit and talk about what she's going to be covering.
All right, sure. Thanks. So Lauren Cadillac is one of my internet besties. We got along like a house on fire, like the second that we came across each other. And really her background is she's focused, she's based in DFW and she's been a real estate lawyer for a while. She's now got her LLM, which means she's also a tax lawyer. And I think that Texas has some interesting quirks as far as how they do deals, how they set things up. And that's why I'm really, really excited to share some of those intricacies. But of course, I'll let Lauren do her own disclaimer about how she's not your lawyer. This is blah, 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 whatever. But Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thank you, Dan, for the introduction. That was very nice. I'm doing great. I'm very happy to be here to talk to everyone. Dan kept saying, I said, what am I talking about? And he kept saying non-disclosure. And I kept thinking, why would I talk about non-disclosure? I'm not a business attorney. I'm a real estate attorney. And after asking quite a few more questions, I realized that the Canadian way of saying using really just fake, using fake money in contracts is called non-disclosure. So here in Texas, when we do a deed, we don't put the actual value or like the actual money that was exchanged. We don't put the amount borrowed. Well, sometimes people do that. That's usually when they've written their own. So I think what Dan was asking me to talk about was the benefits of not having to put that value into a deed, and then also what you can do to help your deal when it comes to property taxes. Am I right, Dan? Does that sound about right?
That's exactly it. Because I'll tell you how it was explained to me. It was that basically in most states, the government does have to know how much you paid for a property. And what I understand about how it works with Texas is that I've been making this joke. It's like, I've got a coin in one of my hands. Guess which one it is? It's like that sort of feel when you get this letter from the tax authorities and saying like, oh, we think you paid this amount. And it's like, well, what exactly are we supposed to do about that? And, me, like, I have this reputation of being like a little bit of, like a maverick, a renegade, like all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to compliance, I stop joking. I really don't want any of the hassle involved in any kind of issue. I want to play by the rules, especially me as an international investor. My attitude is that, like, if we're talking Canada, that's one thing. If we're talking America, it's like, no, it's like being lily white, squeaky clean, playing everything the way you're supposed to. That's the only acceptable way of doing things. And so that's what, that's where I was coming from on this. I think it'd be a very confusing thing for somebody. I think lots of people coming into this, into Texas to invest might be a little bit worried about people investing remotely and not knowing this key part of what, like this little dance between the tax assessors and the people who are actually buying up these properties. That's what I wanted to know first of all. So,
okay. So first I want to say what you just said kind of explains why I won't travel to many countries outside of the United States. Like, I don't know the language and I don't know the law. If I get in trouble here in the US, I know the language and I surely can find another lawyer. So, all right. It's very interesting. In your first year of law school, you take 5 core classes and one of them is contracts. And one of the first things you learn about in the contracts course is that a contract based with sham consideration is not a valid contract. So sham consideration would be if I'm going to buy Dan's 1967 Stingray Corvette that's just completely redone. It's clearly worth $115,000. And we say, okay, we'll write up the agreement and we'll say I paid you $10. So that is sham consideration. Like, there's not a bullet or snowball chance in hell that Dan sold me that car for $10, period. Like, even if he had dementia, that's not an enforceable contract. So that would be considered sham consideration. So you can understand then how surprising it is when we little law students get out into the real world as little lawyers and we see that our deeds and our promissory notes and our recorded instruments in Texas have sham consideration. They either say for $10, or sometimes they say love and consideration. Now, that's not sham consideration. So like love and care is actually good consideration under the law. So if you're a parent or an aunt or whatever, and you're wanting to give something to someone as a gift or caring for you, whatever, that is not considered sham consideration. But in our deeds and our promissory notes, anything that's getting recorded in the public record, not our private contract. The private contract my loan agreement with my lender says $205,000. That's what I just borrowed. That's what it says. That's what they're going to enforce against me. However, in our recordable instruments, it's going to say 10. I don't know why we do it that way here. I'm sure there is a story, and I'm confident it has to do with the fact that we were a country of our own for 9 years, because we love saying that, and that's pretty much our response for anything we do. Well, we were a country for 9 years, so that's why we do it. But the benefit to that is that the taxing authority, they have access to all public records, right? Now, just because the taxing authority is part of the same government that holds the public records, don't for 1 minute think they actually communicate, okay? Because if you think that, you're thinking falsely. No two government departments speak. Even if they go to the same Christmas party, they don't actually communicate with each other. So the benefit of having that alleged, the low level consideration is that the CAD only has access to the public information. So it says $10. So in this case, the government actually has to do its job and make an assessment of the actual value of the property. Now, that does open some doors where I have seen the government use like quotes from realtor.com, like beautiful kitchen, and then like it's my own house, right? And so I know it's not newly remodeled because it's like the electricity doesn't even comply with the standards of the early 90s, right? It's a sales pitch, and you're going to use that as a way to assess the value on my house. That's a real problem. Again, one thing you briefly touched on right there was when you purchase the property. So in Texas, when you purchase the property, you set the value. They're going to know that there's a deed exchange. So if the deed goes from Lauren Cadillac to Cadillac Family Trust, they're going to understand like that wasn't necessarily a sale, right? That's not really an exchange of value. That's me putting an asset into a trust for protection. However, if it goes from Lauren Cadillac to, Dan Fradenburgh, that's probably not my trust name. That's probably some type of retail transaction. So they will use that as a trigger to make a new assessment of your value. And what happens a lot of times is they'll overassess, and they'll assess you at higher than what you actually paid. And those times are actually kind of great, because all you have to do is just fax them a copy of your closing documents, and they'll immediately adjust it to what you paid. So that's super cool if you can show closing documents, that show a much lower value. I'm going to stop there and let Dan go.
Since she says that we're going to stop right there, I got to mention one thing, which is how pricey attorneys' time really is. And I just love the fact that we're able to give all this value to everybody, but it's because somebody else is paying our bills. So let's get a very perky Angel Williams to say a few things about our sponsor, Sponsor Cloud.
Hey guys, it's Angel, and we are super excited to announce our newest gold sponsors, Sponsor Cloud. If you're wondering what Sponsor Cloud is the one-stop shop for sponsors to automate, to delegate, to execute every aspect of their syndication projects, from affordable PPM generation to investor relationship management to fund administration and compliance, exclusive capital raising networking events. Plus, for the REI Rocks community, they're going to offer free migration and customer success services when switching from another provider. That's like a $2,000 value. So contact Sponsor Cloud, contact them today, and see how much time and money you can save. You can visit them at sponsorcloud.io/contact, and make sure you let them know that you're part of the REI Rocks community, because these sponsors are the reason why we are able to continue offering affordable and low cost, no cost education, summits, information, knowledge, experiences, all of the things that we're able to find and bring to y'all. It happens because we have sponsors like Sponsor Cloud. So check them out, see how they can help you out, and Sponsor Cloud, thank you.
I just love that ad because I know, here's a secret about Angel. She has some difficulty giving that pat on the back about the things that we're doing, but it's easy for me to say that because this week you wouldn't believe the conversations I've had. And it's like, sure, people will say nice things about what we're up to on a fairly regular basis, but this week has been a really big one for people saying, especially because there's one group out there in real estate education that they're costing a lot of people a lot of money. And it's a really scary thing, especially when you can watch these reviews every Friday and it costs you nothing because of these subsidies and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to remind everybody that this space could be yours. We are in the business of eyeballs. So if you want more syndicator, investor eyeballs, all that sort of thing, be sure to reach out and we can get you a spot to show more people. So we're going to continue with Lauren Cadillac, Jason Angel. You can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you had anything you want to add before we continue. Nope. Okay, let's continue.
I do want to touch on how you can use property taxes in Texas and this unique ability we have to dispute the value. How you can use that to save money for your deals. But Dan, I yield the floor.
Excellent, excellent. And I know I looked a little bit distracted, but in my normal fashion, of course it's for you, I found the Amazon book link for The Ultimate Guide to Texas Property Taxes by one Lauren Cadillac. And I just threw that in the chat. It's available on Kindle. I have read this book. I really liked it because it's the kind of thing that's written for a guy like me, where like if there are some details in there that they're very relevant, even though they're kind of not fun to discuss. You're not going to be the life of the party. It's really a quick read there. But I guess before we go on to the other topics, but I want you to say a couple things about who the book was for, just what exactly somebody is likely to get out of it.
Sure. Well, thank you for reminding me that I am a published author.
Yeah, it's contagious, right? It's like, okay, book. Oh yeah, book. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget that like I'm kind of one of the foremost experts on property taxes in Texas. Yeah, I did write the book. So thank you, Dan. And if y'all are interested, please do purchase the book. I have 2 children, and one is in college and the other follows 8 years later, and that will certainly help all of us. So please purchase the book. So I have based my career around real estate, but I particularly started my firm doing property tax protests. And so the book, I chose to do an LLM in taxation. Now, of course, an LLM taxation is federal taxation, right? So we go over the IRS code and we learn about starting trusts in other countries and all those really fun things that you hear about in movies. So that's all well and good, but my personal interest is in like what I touch every day and what has a real effect on my fellow Texans, like on a moment-to-moment basis, is property taxes. And so I wrote my thesis on Texas property taxes and wrote the book as well. And I'm just really passionate about that. I think when I learned that you have to pay property taxes, I'm pretty sure I might have passed out. I don't know. I was like, what are you why would I have to pay what? And to this day, I still can't quite wrap my mind around why I would have to pay tax every year on something I own. And then I have real issues with how my money gets spent. And so if you live in Dallas, you are familiar with the potholes everywhere, and you're familiar with the DISD being literally the lowest and the crappiest in the entire surrounding area. Now, it's not as crappy as the Houston ISD, which I heard just got taken over by the Texas Education Administration, so they're really crappy. But Dallas ISD is not very great. So it's like, where is my money going? Another thing that made property taxes...
So, Jason, I thought you said that Texas has the best roads in the world. It's...
Yeah, imagine the other roads that you're driving on.
There you go.
That Dallas roads, their highway infrastructure is actually pretty good. The residential roads and small in-town roads, yeah, that could be a different question depending on where you are. But the highways is more of what I was referring to.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny. One of these days, I'm going to live somewhere where, first of all, the outdoors isn't trying to kill you like 8 months of the year. Because my experience is either Taiwan, where they've got all this seismic activity, so the roads are getting cracked because of earthquakes and the actual land moving. And then up here in Canada, we get cracked roads and potholes because of freezing and thawing and all that. But a man can dream. That's on my bucket list. But let's continue.
Even more important, after 2018, when Donald Trump changed our IRS taxes, prior to his changes, we were able to deduct tax. So you never pay tax on tax. That was the rule, right? So if my property tax was $25,000 a year, because I'm super wealthy and I own a mansion, that didn't bother me because that's $25,000 a year I don't have to pay IRS income taxes on. Well, Trump capped that in 2018 with his tax reform at $10,000. And many believe that's actually why the Californians and New Yorkers started going inland, because the property tax, they could no longer write it off their total federal income tax. And so your goal is to stay under that $10,000 mark. So now when you're a multifamily investor, that might not really seem that important until you get that bill. And in Texas, we used to assess the real estate as one, right? There's a land value and then a building value. And then in Texas, the way we did apartments is we did all of the fixtures were considered business personal property. That is the weirdest and dumbest thing I've ever heard of, but I hear they do it in a lot of states that way, a lot of states. So luckily in Texas, they now realize that since the light fixture is a fixture, and you can't sell, you can't rent the property without having light fixtures. Hello, that is not business personal property, it's real estate. So now it's all under one. And so that changes your game as an owner on where you can get value reductions, right? So you're not going to be able to say, our stoves really stuck and get those done as business personal property reduction, you're going to have to kind of show a more fuller real estate picture when you go to show why your value should be lower.
Excellent, excellent. And I had a note in the chat here privately to say to hold up the book, but I don't know who isn't aware of this. I'm from the internet, so I'm like Mr. Digital, and yes, it's not a physical book, but I did get this picture from Amazon up on my screen, the ultimate guide to property taxes. So that's really awesome. So let's just say then you get the letter and they're off by a lot. Like they say, it's like, oh, you know, let's say I'm going to use different numbers. Let's say you paid 10 million for a property, and they say that you paid 11. Just using nice round numbers. Like obviously that's going to, like every commercial property. It's, you know, commercial real estate in general has been around for, you know, a few thousand years. So there's a lot of competition. Everybody gets that if you own these properties, there is money involved. And so like basically it's a little bit thin, you know, like there's not a whole lot of profit lying around for just anybody. And a much bigger tax bill could be the make or break sort of thing. So should people be freaked out when they get an evaluation that's way too high, or, you know, like obviously they should be talking to an attorney, but what can you say on that?
I tell people, don't open the evaluation unless you're seated, because when you fall over and you hit your head, you know, you want to be closer to the ground. Maybe lay down and open it.
So get a helmet. Get a helmet if you're going to be investing.
Yeah, exactly. Put your tax assessment helmet on, and then open it. Make sure you're in a padded area. Don't have any valuables lying around because you might throw them and break them. You know, make sure your cell phone's not in your hand.
Sharp objects.
Yes, sure. Yes. So when I'm going to give you kind of layers on your question. When they assess on the year you purchased, you set the value, right? So if you bought it at 10 million and they assessed it at 11, you can just send them your closing documents and they'll adjust it down to 10, period, end of story. That's no questions asked. They're not going to give you any shit. A good property tax agent, like myself, I'm not even going to show them those papers. I'm actually going to show them the condition, and I'm going to tell them why you overpaid and what an idiot you are for doing so. And people ask me, should I come? No, do not come to this. I'm going to make you sound so stupid. I'm going to make you sound like a slumlord that you know you're not going to like me after. Also, none of this is actually my opinion. This is just how I'm selling something here. This is a sales pitch, guys. So, so it's, oh my God, they overpaid, but idiots, and try to get it below the 10 million, right? If you don't think that's possible, maybe you bought it in July for 10 million and you've already repaired one building, and so the value should really be like 15 at this point, and they're assessing you at 11, then maybe you let sleeping lions still. So it is something you have to make a business decision around, and part of that decision should involve someone who actually does these all the time, because they'll know whether or not it's worth the try, right? If you bought it in November and you haven't even applied for a single permit yet, and we can get condition photos showing that you got a complete junker, then that's going to be a bit of a different story. But one thing I will say is you want to preserve evidence. So I tell these people, this is true for commercial, residential, anything. Take a photo before you make a repair. That's the photo I want to see. Another thing that's really important is that in Texas, the assessment day is January 1st. It's the value on January 1st. These CADs, and I go to their yearly continued education. I go every year so that I can hear what they're talking about. Out loud, they've said, oh yeah, we know it's January 1st, but we'll look into March. Oh, so we know what the law is, but we're going to ignore it because it doesn't favor our position. So I hit hard. This is January 1st. This is January 1st. This is January 1st. The law says January 1st. The law says January 1st. I don't care if these people are willing to break the law. I am not. The law says January 1st. So what matters is how it looks on January 1st, what the condition is on January 1st, what the value is on January 1st. If it burns down on January 2nd, you might be able to use that. Let's be honest. That first week of January, maybe even the first month.
I think that's some killer value she just added right there. And I think the question going through anybody in the audience's mind, there's got to be two. One is, how do I get more of this value? The other thing is, how do I meet more people like this? So I'm going to pass it over to Angel and say, I don't know if you want to talk about the subscription or Marvelous Mondays first, but I think we should talk about both, but go for it.
All right. Well, I will talk about Marvelous Mondays first, because that one happens every Monday. We meet every Monday at noon Eastern, and it's a great group of people, 25 to 40, super laid back, super knowledgeable syndicators. And we just have a really great time talking about real estate stuff. We talk about kind of everything, but the real estate stuff is cool too. So that's a really great place to meet other people who are active in the field right now, whether passively or on the GP side. And so again, it's just a really great place to meet. As for the subscription, what you're going to get is a ton of content. Right now, it is still only about $20 a month, and you get every summit that we've done, every presentation from those summits, and it is a massive amount of information. And like I said earlier, you really get to from the very first summit to this past summit in March, you see a growth pattern. And so the topics really become more intricate, more detailed, more applicable. And yes, the first summit is very applicable and intricate and everything too, but you see more of a trajectory of growth and how things have changed over the last 4 years. And so that's why the subscription is really awesome, and you get a lot for what you're going to pay. So it's a really great investment.
I completely agree, and I really love being able to share little bits of these presentations to everybody every Friday. But because I'm a tease, I love not giving all of it. So that's why we always cut these presentations at 45 minutes in, so that there's still more to catch. So let's keep continuing on. This is the REI Rocks Review. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, reviewing these different presentations on commercial real estate, the mindset, the life of being a commercial real estate investor / syndicator, and other types of investors, basically figuring out your future. But this presentation is with Lauren Cadillac, the Dallas real estate attorney. Let's continue.
It was a burn down kind of situation. But if you are talking like I started filing for permits on January 15th, and they're now trying to say that those permits are reflective of a higher value, because on January 15th, that's not January 1st. You didn't know the permits were going to be applied for. So no. And that's why you hire a professional, because we know those rules and we can say things like, I think you're a little off there.
I love it. And so back in the fall summit, we had you on with a bunch of other attorneys. And one of the things I got two things coming off of what you just said there. The first one was the difference between a CPA and a tax attorney. You had a great way of putting the difference. And just to put it into perspective for anybody in the audience, the issue that I ran into when I had to move my business from Taiwan to Canada was I turn around to the attorney and they'd say, ask the accountant. And I turned around to the accountant and they'd say, I'll turn around to the attorney and ask them. And it just, everybody seemed to be trying to shirk their responsibility. And at the risk of repeating ourselves, I still love it if you'd, shed some light on that one again real quick there, Lauren.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to start first. My dear friend Kevin, I saw him on here. He is my friend and I love him, and I'm sure he has a sense of humor. I'm sure of it. However, he is the exception to the rule, which is CPAs don't have a sense of humor. When you go to law school, you learn how to argue both sides of a topic, right? One day I might be making this argument, and then the next day, or even that afternoon, I could be making the opposite argument for a different client, right? I could be arguing against what I was arguing that morning. I actually love it when that happens, because I can steal stuff from the other people's pleadings, and then I don't have to do as much research. It's fantastic. So, saves my clients a lot of money too. All right. The thing is the CPA sees the black letter of the law, and that's that. Period. But as an attorney, I don't believe that the black letter of the law is actually black letter. So I play and live in a kind of a gray area, right? I'm arguing both sides of the law. It really just depends on the judge's mood that day, what the law really is. And, quite frankly, we see that somebody has not yet been indicted, though we know he broke the law. So I don't know that necessarily our laws really even mean anything at this point in our country's history. However, a CPA would not feel that way, okay? And I'm going to give you my best example. For me, when I work with real estate investors, I always use a series LLC. The reason is, if I get sued in Texas and all my assets are in that LLC, the person who gets a judgment against me can go for all my assets in that LLC. But if it's a series LLC, each of my assets is considered to be in its own. So if you sue me on Series A, you're only getting what's in Series A. You're not getting in Series 14. You're not nothing. That's it. So it's like free insurance, right? Plus you pay one Secretary of State fee to register that first LLC, and then you don't have to pay again. You can have as many LLCs as you want. They get EINs. Woo, woo, woo. I have a bunch of videos on YouTube about them if you want to know more. I'm not going to go over too much. Series LLCs have never been looked at by the Supreme Court. To me, that means opportunity. That means I can do whatever I want with it, however I want to, until I got to go to court or until the court says otherwise, right? And even if I'm the one who has to go to court, I have the unique opportunity of telling the Supreme Court how it should work. Here's what the precedent should look like, right? Because there is no precedent. CPAs don't see things that way. That's not how they look at anything. I think, I don't know. I don't believe they look at anything that way. That's the way a lawyer sees things, right? It's not necessarily cut and dry. And so you need your CPA. I love my CPA. That man does math for me. And I know when that math goes to IRS, that math was done right, damn it. But when he tells me things like, oh, we should not have this in this trust, then I say, well, I have all these other reasons for this trust. And he goes, oh, okay, you know what, you're right. I am right, because I'm a lawyer and I understand the law, right? And he's a CPA, he understands the math under the law. So when you're doing something like multifamily investing, I think you need both. I think you need a CPA because they're going to keep you on that black and white, and they're going to do your math, and you're not going to find a lawyer who's great at math. And if you do, I wouldn't trust them. Probably not a great lawyer. So, then you can have the lawyer who can give you the advice. What a lawyer's advice is how is this going to play out in front of a judge? That's really what matters when it comes to the law, right? Are you going to go to jail? Some people can do things that would send others to jail. That has to be that's something, but a CPA can't tell you that. A lawyer can. I know how this judge rules in these cases. I know how well this would get by in a Dallas court. So it's not as concise and as funny as the last time I said it, Dan, but there you go.
No. That's fantastic. But you brought up one legal term, and one of the things, especially because of my experience teaching languages, I find way too many people are willing to do is just let words pass by them and just, like assume they know what it means. And so this should just take a second though. So we're talking about taxes, and that means if you're really on the wrong side, then it's not going to necessarily be criminal for quite some time. So one of these terms, I'll just list off the terms that I want to make sure, just so that people understand the workflow of getting in trouble. So the first one would be, I imagine that you're getting investigated. And I imagine that if you're getting investigated, there might be like more than one way, just conceptually, one where like you're getting investigated and you have no idea what's going on. But I'm not sure if they have some sort of alternative where it's like, hey, we're investigating you, so you watch out, sort of that thing. And then the next step when you're involved in any criminal activity would be you actually get like arrested or detained. I imagine, so there's a warrant involved. And then the word that you did use, which is getting indicted. And can you make sure that people understand, those different steps of, and you can tailor
kind
it
of,
for
but not really.
what you're up to.
I don't do criminal defense because I don't want to work with criminals. And like something like 89% of the time people are guilty, and I don't want them showing up at my house and murdering me. So I can tell you, I don't know. I'm pretty confident that if the IRS is investigating you, because pretty confident they send you multiple letters. I don't think there's any surprise there. Also, I can tell you without a doubt that if any federal agency is coming for you, they are going to have a perfectly sealed case. Like, you're going to have very hard time poking holes in it, but you should do that because it's your constitutional right. Just know that you're probably going to be serving time in federal prison. Okay. The feds come for you, and you probably should be talking plea deal. We know you probably did. Very light, unlike.
And my takeaway from that was, how people say it's like, well, you don't need to make a federal case about it. And I think maybe this is where it comes from. It's because like if there is a federal case against you, you're already like, say your goodbyes for a few years, I guess. It's crazy stuff.
That you didn't do it. Okay. Unless you're a rapper and they use some weird lyric in your song. But us normal folks, first of all, don't do illegal shit. Okay. Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. Very easy.
Okay, I should clarify that Lauren just said, but she actually meant. So there you
go. That being said, there's so many things that are illegal, like spitting on the sidewalk and things like that. That really, Americans are at risk of getting arrested really at any moment, always. So we're not really the land that we claim to be. Once you are arrested, my only advice to you is shut your mouth. Don't say a damn word. Tell them I want my lawyer, and shut your freaking mouth. I don't care how innocent you think you are. I don't care how great you think your story is. Y'all watch these people. Well, she's not crying enough. First of all, how do you know how someone should react when they walk up on their dead husband? Okay. Have you seen your dead husband? No, none of us know that, right? But we all have some kind of opinion. Oh, well, they did it. No, if you are detained is the same as arrested in the United States. If you are detained, you shut your mouth and you ask for an attorney, and you don't say another thing.
Is part of that because the attorney actually has the ability to, get a fact like slightly inaccurate, like if I said I had a third nipple and you were like, oh yeah, it's on his left side. No, it's on the right side. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's okay for an attorney to get one individual fact wrong. But if I'm talking about something, they're going to assume that it's factual, so like it's like, does that make any sense at all?
No, the reason you want an attorney there is because police are human, and humans lie to get ahead. The more people they bust, the better they do, and the further they get promoted, and so on. The Supreme Court itself has said that policing is a competitive business, and therefore we cannot trust the words that come out of the police mouth. That is in Supreme Court. That is the law of this land. Do not trust the police, period. I work with the government every day. My friend who works for the city calls me one day, and she says, come with me to watch a SWAT team drug bust. You better believe I went to see the SWAT team drug bust, okay? Do not for 1 minute think Lauren Cadillac did not show up early for that shit. So we find this perfect parking spot. From our perfect parking spot, we see these apartments. This is where the drug bust is going to take place. And we determine the drug bust is going to be on this side of the apartments and that we have the best view because we see several drug dealers, okay? We watch this lookout hanging out on the patio. We've seen the wire. It doesn't take much to deduce what's going on, right? So we're waiting. And then we hear, and the drug dealers disperse. My lookout runs off. It was my lookout who did the, then we see the police go to the other side of the building. When they got there, the door was open. They didn't even have to bust it down. And they just found the dope laying there. And the guy was like, I don't live here. And they couldn't arrest him. So how many thousands of my dollars was spent to bust absolutely nobody? And tell me that that's okay, that those people are going to have any power in your life. So you should not never, ever, at one moment, ever trust your government, period. And if that's not the greatest example of our money being spent in the dumbest way ever, I'm literally moving from the city of Dallas after seeing that, because I can't deal with my money being spent that way.
Wow.
Not when I have tires explode over potholes. So no, we're not going to do that.
That's really intense. Wow. Holy
moly.
It
is. It's very intense. So y'all stay away from the government. If they're trying to talk to you, make sure a lawyer's there. That's why you need a lawyer there.
Excellent. All right. So the next thing you were saying was about basically how when you represent a buyer, then you would mention all the things that are wrong with it and how they're dummies and they shouldn't have paid that much and all that kind of stuff. Are you able to comment on getting an engineering team in and doing a cost segregation study? Because what they generally do is they find all the things that are messed up and they can accelerate the depreciation, basically saying like, oh, well, this deck, it only ever had like 20 years in it and like 12 of those are already gone. So even though I paid for a deck that's in good shape, the actual value of the property is this much less as a result of that. So would you work hand in hand with cost segregation people? Is that something you can comment on?
Oh, absolutely. If someone had a cost segregation and they could provide me documentation that was just like what you outlined, that would be a dream client. Really, if I had a business that even had an inventory of this.
So there you go. So that's a good call. So I think that's a good time to mention the importance of having a big network, and especially ones that people who really know what they're doing, people you can trust, people who can put you in the right direction. And for that, I want to talk about the mastermind. But instead of me talking about it, I can just put Jason on the spot and put some triangles on my face here. So we got our introductory meeting happening in a week for our summer cohort. Here's the little thing for that. Jason, you want to say a few things about the mastermind?
Yeah, I will. We are starting our next cohort for the second half of the year next week. So if you haven't already, you need to get in quickly because it's not going to be available again until January. And what it is we collectively as a group, we limit it to 12 people total. So we have a close-knit, intimate group, and we provide each other direction. We support each other. We help each other when we're struggling. We hold each other accountable. We are all entrepreneurs who want to grow. And so we make sure everybody's growing, because as I'm helping you, you're also helping me, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So if this interests you, then you need to sign up. I think Dan can, I guess, scan the QR code or go to the link here. And we look forward to talking with you. So anything else I miss?
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything. I do want to contrast it with some of the other masterminds that are out there. Hopefully you can watch this on replay as well. You can pause and scan that QR code that was up on the screen. But there are other people who call their groups masterminds. There's some where it's guru based, which is basically somebody's up at the front talking about how rich and cool they are and how you can be rich and cool like them too. But at the same time, they're generally not providing much of any value, and maybe just boosting a little bit of energy, as opposed to a peer-based mastermind where everybody is in as more or less equals, even though we have our own expertise. And so, we know who is the authority in the group for this or that or the other thing. So I think it's really important to have a group like that. And this mastermind, it really is different, even though I see that it's becoming more and more popular. Once again, I know that like last year, I wasn't hearing that many. A lot of people are putting out their first masterminds, and this is not our first mastermind. So that's why we really have that proof of concept all put together. But we only have another 5 minutes, so let's get a little bit more of this presentation going. This is the REI Rocks Review. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is Lauren Cadillac talking about Texas taxes. Let's do it.
Things they own. That would be a dream. I guess like maybe because I grew up in a compliance area, we have an inventory and a code for everything. Like every piece of furniture is inventoried and so on. And if you don't have that in your business, you should be a little embarrassed right now, but when we hang up, you can go do it. It takes, an hour maybe, unless you own a bunch of stuff, and then it's gonna take a long time. And yeah, if I had an analysis like that to hand to them, absolutely, that would be huge, particularly when you get in front of the board. So in Texas, we can do these informals, and then we can do these boards. And the boards are made up of people who worked in the real estate industry, but they're now retired, and they're volunteers, and so they're there like 6 months a year for 2 years, and they love stuff like that. Like, you give them something like that, and it doesn't matter what the county says. You won. You're gonna win. I know, like, having worked with them, I know the kind of photos they like. I use the words they like to hear. You start to really get familiar with that. But I can tell you, a cost segregation analysis that has that kind of information is going to be a winner. Period. Yeah, and the government.
I guess it's another good spot to pause, because there are rumors. I don't feel confident in anything I've seen that it's 100% confirmed, but it does look like the 100% bonus depreciation that was supposed to be phased out at the end of last year, it looks like it is coming back. And what that's all about is, if you understand how corporate finances work, you have the seed capital to start it up. So you start your business with your 20K, 30K, 50K, 150K, whatever it is. And then you're allowed to tread water at that amount with no tax. So what that means is you get a certain amount of revenue putting you over. But if you get a certain amount of losses, even if they're only on paper, they can cancel each other out. Now, of course, we're not financial advisors. We're not lawyers or whatever. So I don't want to, set you on the wrong direction as far as that goes. But these cost segregation analyses, they can save you a whole lot of money and make it so that some of your revenue it's not taxable just from offsetting with those losses. So let's continue.
And, your evidence is good enough, and you get to the CAD and you have something like that, and the CAD goes, okay, we agree. We'll go with whatever, what they said. I have that quite often, actually, when I go to these. They agree with me, I would say, at least 75% of the time, because it's really not worth arguing. You got to look at them, cost-benefit analysis. How many people are actually showing up to participate in this process? It's certainly a lot more than it used to be, right? But it's maybe 1% of real estate owners in the whole state, right? So if they give me what my analysis showed, a discount of $200,000-300,000 based off of that, they're not really losing out. It's like $2,000. There's still Joe Blow, who's never commented, Sally Sue, who never protests. Like, they're still going to get their money, right? So if you can provide really strong and well put together evidence like that, that is definitely going to be favorable to you.
Excellent. So going to the chat here, I have one comment from somebody that I'm not going to name for reasons. They say theoretical numbers: buying for $10 million, previous taxes 10 years ramp up to $2.5 million. Now they are assessing at $8 million. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. I don't know if an alleged person wants to allegedly unmute and ask it some more.
I don't know what it means. That looks like they also are representing every lawyer on the call, and talking about the prosecutor at the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I did not like that prosecutor. I did a video on that on YouTube if you want to check it out. Also, that judge is in charge of some other case that's been on recently, some stalker boyfriend, and the judge was really loony there. And in fact, that judge reminds me quite a bit of the type of judges that we're dealing with in Dallas. So he just doesn't really stick to the law, and he kind of does his own thing. And I know a lot of folks are really surprised to hear that, but that's what people do. So when we have people in charge of processes, this is what happens, right? So until the machines take over being judges, you're going to have to deal with people's personalities and moods.
Right. So maybe if we can get a thumbs up or a thumbs down sort of thing. I think what is trying to be said here is that if it was evaluated at 2.5 million for like 10 years or something, and then they suddenly boosted up to 8 million. Let's see if that came out there.
No, I am muted. You hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
So suppose you have a property, you bought it at 10 million. Since Texas is a non-disclosure state, they originally assessed it at 2.5 million, like year you bought it, and like the previous 10 years have only been increasing maybe 5% each year. And then the year you buy it, they say, oh, here, we're assessing it now at 8 million. So your taxes pretty much quadruple, but still less than if it was at full value. I guess this is when you come in and you make me look like a dumbass and say I way overpaid for it and I'm a slumlord and stuff like that.
Yep. And really, just so you know, that's only possible in commercial property. If we were talking about a house, you're screwed. You're lucky that they're not billing you what you paid. The year you buy it, you set the value, period, end of story. Can I get some more leeway on commercial? Yes. Can more be done in commercial? Absolutely, right? Do I have a chance to say that you were an idiot? I sure do. I say maybe he didn't check the tax rolls before he bought it. But also, just FYI, the Constitution of the state of Texas allows them to assess at market value. So if they found out you paid $10 million, they can come back and assess you at that, and you will not win in court. So when they have it below, you just say, oh, thank you, Jesus, and you move on with your life.
What a great place to end that off. We've got a doggy bag. I'll start the doggy bag. I don't usually start the doggy bag, the takeaways from the presentation. Me personally, I'm going to start saying Amsterdam, Lutely, like the caption said, just there as often as possible. That was fantastic. But Angel, Jason, who wants to start off with the takeaways from this presentation?
Amsterdam Lutely. No, you definitely need to catch the full presentation. It was pretty good, and the only way to do that is through the subscription. The subscription will be doubling next month. So right now it's $17 a month. You can still get in. It's going up to $34. It's still not going to break your bank, but we do have more web storage for all the videos and content we have, and that price is going up. So that's what we're doing, is we're just trying to cover our overhead. It's still going to be a good deal regardless if it's 34 or 17. So just throwing that out there.
Yep. And I got some spicy content releasing about the dangers of other services, these coaching ones, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be coming out, and I'm doing it under my brand just because it might get messy. And so nothing I say ever represents Learn Capital or its subsidiaries or everything. I'm just a dipshit or whatever. Angel, what do you got for your takeaways?
I think it's really important to just know that there are ways out there for you to dispute your taxes. I think that there are many people that see it and they're like, well, I guess this is just what I do and this is what I'm going to have to pay. And they don't understand that they can contest it. In residential, it gets a little different because I guess it's the same in commercial too, but when you dispute it, a lot of times, if you don't capture the dispute within a certain window, it doesn't apply to that year and you end up having to pay that bill anyway. But there are people out there like Lauren that can help you navigate that process. And she probably knows some secret way to get it applied to that year too that I don't know. So I think it's really important to realize that there are people out there that specialize in helping you when it comes to property taxes.
After all, she did write the book on it, so.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, that's it's one of those things. It's tough to it's I guess one of the things to Summit is laziness does not pay. And so if you ignore these assessment letters, it's costing you for real. But I'd argue more importantly, it's costing your investors. So if you're in this business, you're taking on investors, you're syndicating deals, that kind of stuff, and you're not contesting your taxes, you're not doing your job as a GP. You really need to make sure that you are cutting the expenses as much as you possibly can without reducing the benefits to the residents and the investors. And this is just one of the pieces of the puzzle. So I always appreciate having Lauren on. She's absolutely hilarious. Of course, the more serious somebody is, the more I try to make them laugh at some point, and that includes CPAs. So I'm sure I've made a few CPAs laugh in my time, but maybe I'll be actually funny one of these days. But this has been the REI Rocks Review. I got to give you guys the rest of your weekend back. I always appreciate you joining us. And we are here at 11 a.m. Eastern every Friday reviewing all this different content. Do we have any other last words you want to say, or you just want to say goodbye, guys?
I'm ready to say goodbye. Have a good weekend, everybody. And we'll catch you on Monday at our Marvelous Monday meetup.
Be there. Meet lots of people. Good stuff. All right. Thanks. See ya.